Director of Xerox Research Center India, and has held various leadership positions with IBM, including that of Director IBM Research India and Chief Technologist IBM India South Asia. As a senior manager at the IBM T.J. Watson Research Center, New York, he led the team developing system software for the Blue Gene L supercomputer. Professor Manish will share his journey as a researcher turned entrepreneur. Let the talks begin.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm amazed. I didn't think so many people would come actually after lunch, and typically conference rooms, 5 stars, after lunch everybody goes, right? So, well, 2 o'clock is really the death hour, and imagine doing that on a Sunday afternoon when all systems actually come to a close on a Sunday afternoon, biologically, but anyway, it's good. Thanks anybody for coming back after lunch. I'm not going to spend too much time considering all these. I'm going to talk a little bit about the way I see it. Yeah? It may not be absolute truth, but that's the way I see it. I've come from the corporate, as the lady has given my background. But last 5 years, I like to think of myself as somebody in the trenches, working quite a bit with NGOs on the social side and social sector. So the way I look at these 3 silos, I'll still call it, I mean, considering what the speakers have spoken, you may not think it is that much siloed, but the way corporates, the thing that they do, shareholder value, all the bringing in people, great stuff, fraud. I come from Satyam Computers, so I can't help not talking about fraud once in a way, but all the rest of it. So they've been doing that, and pretty much on their own. Academia, you guys know everything about academia. I actually don't know too much about how academics and things work together. Social sector. Now, these guys, as we have seen, the social sector people are phenomenal people actually. Phenomenal individuals, solo, passion-driven guys who do everything. They're phenomenal people. And really, there's not been much interactions. At some premium institutes, there have been some interactions between corporates and academia, but really not been much interaction. Even more or less when you look at corporates and NGOs, the CSR bill has started driving some conversations, but really it is essentially about, all right, we got some money, where do we put it, and conversation ends. Nobody really got down to understanding more on the domain side and areas like that. Some academic and NGO sector interactions happen. I actually think it's more from the TIS kind of institutes and those kind of institutes, but I may be wrong, don't hold me to that, but that's my view. Looking at the corporates, the week before, on the other hat that I wear, Impact 2030 for the Sustainable Development Goals, I've done a roundtable with about 20 corporates in Bangalore. And essentially we were talking about the whole area of corporate volunteering. And it's very interesting because there is a lot of drive from the top of the organizations to get more and more corporate volunteering. They want to do more and more volunteering, and people are really saying, the kind of volunteering we want to do is really skill-based. I mean, yes, going and painting a bridge or all the other things that we tend to do, give blood, all those are very, very important, and I'm not saying anything wrong to that. But corporates with all that experience are saying, we want to do skill-based volunteering. We got a lot of corporate, we got a lot of skills, and we want to see if there's something that we can do. And they're looking for those kind of opportunities. And management actually sees this as a great employee engagement tool. So one is, they say it is good for the organization. When a guy is corporate volunteering, even he takes time off, we have got lots of things around that. It's good for the individual, leadership, the kind of things that they develop. I'm from the IT industry, and I say we have a lot of sense of entitlement. And, some of those things can tend to go down a bit with the corporate volunteering that goes on. And they look at that as talent attraction and retention processes. And corporates by themselves generally look at efficiency, scale, so they bring some of those experiences with them. Look at the NGOs. The NGOs, as I just said, and the 2 NGOs that have spoken in the morning, I have happened to even work in one of those NGOs, so those guys are not your representative NGOs. They're at the top end, primarily because of the founders and maybe the kind of funding that they got or the kind of thing, but they're not your representative NGOs. The representative NGOs are totally different. They're all trying to do what I say as a small geography deep impacting work or a large geography, small impacting work. They're not trying to work over there. Very little technology intervention, almost zero, very little into that. And really, if you go and ask an NGO, I want to help you with technology, what do you want me to do? You go and ask that question, at best, they'll say, okay, build me a website, or do something like do a tally implementation for my finances. Some of those things that they do. That's because they're in the field. Day and night they're in the field. They don't have too much time or understanding some of these things. And suddenly this whole corporates are coming together and they're asking them, how do you scale, how do you be sustainable? And these guys, that is not the language an NGO really learned much about that. Academic, you guys have a lot of people, students, ability to do research and things like that. So having been for the last 5 years in this social sector space and the last 27, 28, whatever number of years in the industry, both in India and abroad. So here is a model that I'm experimenting. I'm not saying this is the final model, this is the only way to do it, but here is a model I'm beginning to experiment and have had extensive conversations with IIIT, DV Jagdish, Ramesh, and we actually put this model together of how we could perhaps try and bring the corporates, and when I say corporates, it is around that whole area of corporate volunteering. And the CSR funds, not right away, but and the CSR funds as well. But the whole thing of bringing the corporates together, the academic institutions and IIIT being a great example for that. Had I seen your slides before, I would have perhaps changed the presentation. I'm quite worried now. I must speak to you. But this is a model I'm saying. They're piloting. We're looking at something of how we could get an academic organization like IIIT to start thinking of some of the social aspects and start to solve some of those problems. And of course the NGOs. Today I feel and I believe the NGOs perhaps understand the domain of the social sector better than most of us who can think about in this room, I think. And they don't perhaps have the ability many times to articulate it in the kind of language you and I do, the flowery PPTs that we tend to put. They may not be that kind of people, but they really have the domain understanding and competence, which also means to say that they are kind of a custodian of these problems that perhaps are the solutions that you can give them. So that is what we have been thinking about, and said, can we work with the NGOs using the corporate volunteering? As I said, if you go and ask an NGO, I want to solve a technology problem for you, he or she will say build an ERP or build a tally, which is all good stuff, very, very needed. But here my thinking is, there is so much of new age technology. Everybody talked about blockchain, IoT, data analytics, you name it, robotics, all the rest of it, which the social sector is just nowhere near it. And there is an opportunity that some of those can make a tremendous difference either on the scale or on the efficiency of the NGO. So the model that we are looking at now, and we are trying to put this as a pilot, is still early stages. Ramesh and I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago with the corporate. I have bounced this out with a number of corporates, and people think it's a doable idea. I don't know how far it will go. So using the corporate volunteering aspect, can we do the problem definition for the NGO? Corporates want to do volunteering. Can the corporates invest time in it, get to work with their NGO, and do a problem identification and say, if we do this, there might be a big opportunity for either the NGO to build efficiencies or perhaps the NGOs to build scale or what are the other things that the NGOs can do. Why don't you use that resource from the corporates and do the problem definition? Once we do the problem identification, then we can come to the IIIT kind of organizations, and right now we're working very closely with IIIT to really do the solution definition. What is the kind of solution that we can do for this kind of the problem definition, and then build a working prototype. I'm very worried you said students can't, over the word you used, students can't build those things, but I'm hoping Ramesh will do it. So build get a working prototype out with the help of the professors, with the help of the students, and if we can do that, and then use the incubation center that you have to try and productize that, or make it a workable product that we can deploy it with the NGOs, and then get the final solution along with the NGO and take it to the NGOs. So we're not really looking at boiling the ocean. We're not looking at doing a whole lot of things. We want to try and do other problems within the NGO that we could use some of the new age technologies and solve that particular problem for the NGO. Now, will that go into a big bang opportunity? I don't know at this point. I even don't care. If we can start trying to create this for one NGO and then figure out where this model goes, I think there's a big opportunity. And corporates are quite interested. To the number of corporates that I've spoken about, they seem to be quite interested in the model. But eventually, the rubber has to hit the road, and somebody has to sign something for us. So I've got a few more minutes. I'm going to end this. Here is a simple thing that we put together. Everybody knows the whole issue around e-waste. Perhaps it's one of the most abused thing that happens in the e-waste industry. The way e-waste is collected, the way e-waste is torn apart by people, children, people on the ground, the way it is disposed is a major issue. So we got a corporate to actually fund this bin. This interesting looking bin is what we designed. We got a corporate to fund the bins, and Bangalore One has agreed to host these bins in their kiosks. So that's another good thing that they've done. And we got another NGO. Two NGOs don't really work together, So in the corporate, we have learned to compete and collaborate, but the NGO is still getting there. Okay, most of them are actually reinventing the wheel, I have to say. So we got another NGO to put a whole awareness campaign and program. You put a bin in a kiosk, nobody is going to put anything over there. But we wanted to create that whole awareness. We are gathered. In 2 months, we got 1.5 tons of e-waste into those bins. We are actually setting a target to put 1 ton per month going forward. And right now, we've got about 15 bins. We're going to scale these bins up. So here is a simple problem which we're trying to do, and none of you guys will fall off the chair. It's a very simple solution. But here's what we're trying to do. We wanted to put a device in the bin, which would help us let us know when the bin is full. We also wanted to, we were worried about a little bit of pilferage. We wanted to put a device in the bin which can help us to see if the weight is going down at any point of time, or is there a constant, when is the upgradation of waste. So that's a model we're piloting. There are a number of problems. We're actually trying to build up a whole set of problems for the education, for the health. Typically, as somebody said in the morning, these are the 5 areas most of the corporates that I know are interested in. We want to build a small database, a repository of those problems. We want to work with organizations like an academy like IIIT, go to market together. If the NGO or somebody like a IIIT and perhaps us who says we have some domain expertise, chances of getting deeper funding and faster funding with the corporates is a lot more higher in this model. So with that, I would end. Thank you very much.
Exactly, they have done it, a prototype.
Yes.
I think German corporation.
Right.
They are way ahead.
Right.
Few entities.
That'd be very useful. Yes.
Right. I can connect.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have a question but more towards Mr. Venkat from Janakra. I want to know what kind of corporate, like the kind of model which you mentioned, are you using such models and what's the answer?
On corporate volunteering, what it's also for Mr. Subramaniam, my experience is it's a bit mixed. So we work with very big corporates, and there are 2 sets of people who come to do this volunteering. People who come and stay with us for 6 months. Now these are kind of in-depth, engagement that really works. But then there are some corporates who say that, and these are employees selected through a lot of internal testing about their intentions and their capabilities. But then they work, work from home for a period of 6 months. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, people who come, sit with us, understand our problems better, and their commitment levels are higher. And secondly, corporate volunteering, You see, at the CEO level, there is a lot of commitment. But as you go down the chain, commitment levels drop dramatically. That is what we also see and understand. But as far as, what was your question?
No, I don't have question as to what sort of corporate interaction have you tried and what it has come to?
Yeah, we have had corporate volunteering programs. We work actively with corporates. So it's been a mixed bunch, as I said. But one thing is that the CEO is very passionate. But as it comes down,
Nobody else knows about it.
yeah. Right.
All right. Thank you.
Namaskara. I have a cold, so my voice is strange. This is not my voice, but it doesn't matter. You're hearing me for the first time. Thanks to him, I have inherited a crowd that is awake, but I cannot guarantee that, Manish, that I'll pass it on the same way. I'll do my best. Thanks, Ramesh, for inviting here. It's always a pleasure to be here. Something close to my heart is about innovation and being an innovator. My research is also in the domain of innovation, but more from the point of how to describe an innovator rather than how to manage innovation. For those of you wondering what the difference is, more like painter versus the painting. You would rather help the painter express his or her own ways than forcing a certain style of painting onto him. Having said that, there is nothing restricted to a particular domain. It is quite domain agnostic. We work with Srishti School to Continental across the road to all sorts of companies, because it's more how you do it. For starters, I took the liberty, Ramesh, to extend the topic was more like bringing research to market, correct? So I extended into research/innovation into market. And you might think they are the same. Obviously they are not, according to, in my world, and from what I know. Research is more, to put it bluntly, like 3M said, converting money into knowledge. And innovation is quite the opposite, converting knowledge into money. So in corporate world, we say if innovation doesn't make money, then don't do it, unlike in the social sector. So there is a value attached to the end of the innovation. In social sector, it's benefit. In a commercial organization, it's money. Nothing wrong about it, because many places where we go, some people are uncomfortable to say boldly, saying businesses are there to make money. And we're not saying to make money only hook or crook. We say, okay, that's the stakeholders' interest, which we as a business owners, we have to take into account. So innovation has to make money in the end for a commercial sector. Now, if you connect back to, as a researcher, anybody pursuing research now in the crowd? Have you done your literature survey? Yeah? Was it easy? Was it always encouraging?
Depends on the subject area.
Any subject.
Current topics, not too much.
Not too much.
It's done, so it is.
The reason is, I'll give you the innovator's view and then come back to literature survey. In innovator's world, we call it as prior art, more related to patents, but I use it a little bit loosely, meaning what already exists. In my average that I have figured out, for any reasonably popular problem, there exist 3 solutions already, before we even start. How good, how bad, how incomplete, that's another story. So when you say, okay, I want to, like just now, we figured out that somebody has a proto for this problem already. It's not that one is better or one is worse. It's that it's just the way world is moving as fast as we are able to move ourselves. So when it comes to innovation, it is always something very, very rudimentary. He talked about technology. He talked about passion. I have realized it's very simple. In the end, something has to connect to what's in it for me. Whether it's a pride, whether it's money, whether it's both, whether it's something else. That is where it all boils down to. Let me give a simple example. If I go to my mom, she's smart, but she's not formally educated. So if I go and tell her, Mom, quad-core processor, she said, okay. Gorilla Glass, Gorilla what? Gorilla Glass, okay. Lithium polymer battery, okay. So I go on and on, 4 GB RAM, okay. All technology stuff. I'm proud, I'm an engineer, right? So she will listen because I'm her son, nothing else. And then she asks, so what? I was in a long discussion day before yesterday. There was a very good doctor from Vellore and a professor from Vellore. Strangely, they were working together, and I even asked them, how did you guys meet? Because I was very curious how they met and even worked together. He explained to me a process of why there is an idea that he has is something that I should help him productize. So I asked him the same question. He said, with this I can see the fetus. I said, so what? No, I can check its oxygen level. I said, so what? I said, please tell me, if I come to your hospital and I admit my wife for childbirth, tell me what is it that I'm going to get. Till then, it's your world, not your customer's world. As researchers, as innovators, as technologists, we have this trap, I call it. In the other sense, we can get out of this trap, that we get excited about what we are coming up with. How many of you have seen the ad of toilet with remote control? What is the problem statement, sir, for that solution? It's, if you watch cricket, they blast this ad every few minutes. I don't want to take the name for no other reason, just for courtesy. The point is, if I have a remote control commode, I'm still struggling. What is the reason or the big benefit that I get? I still have to get to the place. I cannot say somebody, I'm done now. You see the point? This is what I call Clinton philosophy. You know, Clinton said that somehow that's the only thing I remember from his era. Don't do it just because you can do it. I can put remote control in anything I can today, so let me put it. I did the same thing. In my previous job, my mother is always a big test for me, especially kitchen things. So I did an IoT induction stove. So go and give it to her. She said, okay, looks good. I said, you know what? No, I can control it from anywhere. I was going to China the next day. So I happened to say I can control from China. Because it's IoT, right? She said, so what? Are you going to cook from there? I was excited. I could make an IoT device for kitchen. The point is, when we as researchers and innovators look, we do not look outside the world who is getting the benefit. We talk technology, we talk, even Ramraj Cotton can innovate. I'm sure some of you know what they have innovated, right? Pocket. Your father and my father did not need a dhoti with pocket. So if they had come up with that innovation, then there was nothing for them to put it for, there was no value. He said, why do I need pocket? Now, if you don't have pocket, you have a problem. So the way we have to look at as a researcher, as an innovator, is what is it that the value we are bringing? How many of you are following of this Gioni phone? They are proposing selfie to be taken with flash. Now tell me, problem statement for that solution is like this. I want to take selfie, there is no light, there is no possibility of light, and I'm desperately wanting to take a flash. That is a problem statement which fits exactly, this is a solution. Take it. No problem. Am I right or wrong? See, the point is, we very often have this problem. I have something, please take it. I always give this example. Thank you. I decide I have a medicine for headache. Ramesh, please take it. I said, who has headache? No, I have worked on it. Please take it. I said, boss, I don't have headache. No, you should take it. I have worked for 3.5 years. It's really, really cool. I said, I don't have headache. Take it free. I don't want it. So we get into this frustration mode. All of this leads to only one thing, that today there is so much of hype about startup that it is very easy to start up, but we don't know where we are going to end up. And for that, to know where we are going to end up, we should have at least where we think we will end up. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was given this topic, am I there yet? Journey of a researcher turned entrepreneur. So again, I think the only thing I can do is I can say, look, if you're really looking for the answer, the short answer is no, and now you're free to leave. I'm not really, I mean, I don't feel qualified, right, to be really talking about this, because I mean, I'm not really a successful entrepreneur, just somebody who began this journey a few months ago, more precisely January. So I mean, I was, and after the age of 50. So in fact, everybody, including, especially in my family, they're wondering, why the hell? I mean, what's gone wrong with you? You seemed like a reasonable guy all these years. What certainly got into you? Because they know, right, the chances of my success are very, very low. My son is the first to point out, Dad, do you know, I mean, what percentage of startups actually succeed? Forget about succeeding big. And after reaching the age of 50, right, there aren't too many examples of people who succeed with this kind of a thing after that. So highlights of my journey. So I mean, I'm actually an accidental entrepreneur. Maybe up until whatever. I mean, if you asked me 1.5 years ago, do you want to become an entrepreneur? I would have told you, no way. I mean, I'm not built to be meant to be an entrepreneur. So I mean, I was a conventional kind of a guy, right? I mean, entrepreneurs are usually people who think differently and so on. So I was this conventional guy doing conventional things. I mean, initially, in fact, I signed up for computer science when I'd never seen a computer at that time, right? So it was, in fact, one of my uncles kind of warned me. He was a civil engineer. He said, better do things, I mean, take up civil engineering. You'll be learning basic concepts and you'll be set for life. You do take up this thing called computer science, you'll have to keep learning all your life. So in fact, that was a big lesson in the importance of lifelong learning that I learned, because I really ended up enjoying computer science just because of the fact that you have to keep learning throughout. So anyways, after I got my PhD, I did the usual thing. I mean, joined this IBM Watson Research Center, started working on various kind of research problems. Along the way, I got this opportunity to lead kind of a foolhardy project, where we were trying to build the world's fastest machine in a very unconventional manner. And everybody pretty much thought the project was going to be kind of a big disaster, but including the teams that were working on it. The hardware team the software team had no idea how to build software that would scale to those levels of over 100,000 processors. Software team was very skeptical. The hardware team would actually build something that worked, but we all managed to prove each other wrong and managed to build a machine that became the world's fastest supercomputer. In fact, and it was in a very different manner. It was consuming 100 times lower floor space, consuming less than 100 times the power of the previous machine, the Earth simulator that it beat in performance. So my key lesson from this was that at least once in your life, which I try to impart to everybody who would care to listen to me, and you always do that at your own risk, that at least once in a while, try to do something that the world thinks is virtually impossible. Because if you end up succeeding, you get a much bigger boost in everything, in your career, in kind of just feeling that sense of satisfaction, than you would get if you were just working on very, very sure shot kind of incremental kind of work, setting those very incremental kind of targets. So I would always, so when I got this opportunity to lead the IBM Research Lab in India and later Xerox Research Lab, that's the, in some sense, advice I would always give my colleagues. In fact, I remember when I joined Xerox, I was very disappointed to see, I mean, almost everybody in the lab was a project lead. Because in India, we kind of tend to value these labels a lot, right? You have to be leader. So everybody was a project lead of this 1% effort, right? Where they were the lead and they were also contributing to another project where somebody else was the lead. So I said, look, I mean, just do these things for the sake of getting these labels and so on, especially in your career. Leadership doesn't come from this label that you've been named a leader. Leadership comes from your real level of contributions. So you could be the junior most person, but really showing leadership if you're doing amazing work. So, so as I kind of pushed people into doing more ambitious, raising their ambition, working on things that at least people thought were impossible or very, very hard to do. My general experience was anytime we were doing, again, interesting things which were at least kind of adjacent to the market that our company was working on, it was relatively easy to have impact. So, I mean, at IBM in India, we worked on this, our team worked on this technology called Voice of Customer Analytics, which was way ahead of its time. In the years 2006 to 2009, they worked on this technology together with Daksh, the call center company that IBM had acquired, to analyze all of these interactions between call center workers and our clients' customers, and analyzing those interactions to understand what were the issues that our clients' customers were dealing with, and sharing those insights back with the clients. Because this was adjacent, so this was, again, very, very novel work at that time, analyzing all of these call center conversations, email exchanges, and later social media. It was way ahead of its time, and it resulted in a very kind of a lucrative IBM service and so on, led to a lot of impact. But whenever we tried to do something which was very different, tried to create a fundamentally new business for the company, we always failed in those efforts. So one such effort was at IBM was the spoken web, where we were trying to create the equivalent of the World Wide Web, but in the spoken word, using the spoken word. So you had voice sites, which could be hyperlinked to other voice sites through this hyper-speech transfer protocol and so on, and you could do all kinds of things that you could do on the web, but using a mobile phone and just using voice kind of as your interface and so on. Amazing technology, never were able to really make it scale and really put the right investments. And my lesson was that in a large corporation, it was kind of, again, I mean, if you worked on things which were in some sense incremental to the business, it was easy enough to make impact. If you were trying to create a new market, and especially if you're trying to create a new market in a country like India, in a multinational corporation, which was, let's say, the decision makers were sitting in the US, it was very, very hard to do. So I realized the only way for me to then at least attempt to make an impact in something new that I want to do has to be to do something on my own. So that was kind of the lesson that I took. And the problem that I was then very focused on was this whole our education problem. And again, I don't need to belabor the point, right? So we have, and I've picked a narrow slice of engineering education that despite, so we looked at this dichotomy that now you have so much of amazing content being created through all these MOOCs, edX, Coursera, MIT OpenCourseWare, NPTEL program by the government of India, yet the learning outcomes at our typical engineering institutions are so poor. And in fact, I fear now that things are about to get much worse because, again, I mean, sorry, I guess that's in a longer topic, longer talk. Now with technology leading to so much of automation, the services industry, which has been hiring these, 25% of the people who actually get jobs, they're no longer going to be hiring that many people, and they're going to be looking for very, very different people with very different skills. So concern was, so I viewed this as pretty much our number one problem as a country and tried to see could we do something about it through technology. So we looked at some of these issues of, yes, MOOCs are leading to a lot of very good video lectures being created, but still have this philosophy on all or nothing. You either follow that MOOC or you don't. There's no kind of way to unbundle the MOOC very conveniently. Level of engagement tend to be low and so on, and often the philosophy is like one size fits all. I create a wonderful MOOC and each and every learner of those hundreds of thousands or millions of learners are basically supposed to just follow that same material. So we started building this platform at Xerox, which was that time called TutorSpace, to try and see if we could use technology to help bridge some of this gap. And last year, when Xerox, again, I mean, it was the usual thing. Xerox at some point said, look, we are splitting into two companies and education is no longer of priority to us. That's when that's what led to me becoming an entrepreneur, because I was passionate about this problem. I said, okay, you don't care about this education vertical anymore. Fine, I care about it. Would you let me buy this technology from you and do a startup? And so we did that, and we started our independent operations in January. In fact, so I had the fortune of hearing from Professor Sadgopan that he reached out to me saying, hey, we have this chair professor. So he was kind enough to offer this chair professor position, which became a very kind of a complementary thing, because I talked to him about wanting to develop technologies to support learning, and he said, yes, come in and we'll support you in that mission. So here I was. But I quickly realized that since I wanted to this, time is up? Okay. So 3-4 minutes. Okay, so since I wanted to, again, continue to do this technology development, because, I mean, even though we had developed a fair amount of technology, in my view, we have a lot more work to do. I see this as a very, very hard problem, right? For us to ultimately, really through technology, support each and every learner in their learning journey, understanding their background, their strengths, their weaknesses, their aspirations, and so on, and really provide the right kind of support to each and every individual learner. I feel this, I mean, I need to have a very, very kind of talented team work for at least of the order of 10 years before I feel we would have a good enough solution. So I view this as a very, very hard problem. So I wanted to continue to have kind of a research team working on some of these harder aspects of the problem while we try to build the business. And so one of the first things that I realized was I was not going to be able to sustain this in terms of as a business, just from whatever the money we would make from educational institutions. Yet we wanted to continue to at least engage with the educational institutions, because that's where we ultimately see the impact happening. So then we looked at this other phenomenon that with technology pretty much changing the face of the world, right? People are referring to this as the digital transformation of the world and so on. Companies also face that same problem, that all corporations, big and small, they really need to figure out how to cope with these dramatic changes in technology. They need to prepare their employees to cope up with these changes, stay on top of these, and employees are really the most, the most precious assets of any company. So we have been, again, going to these enterprise customers and talking about the whole learning methodology itself, going through a digital transformation, and the fact that now they shouldn't just kind of organize these trainings, they should also support self-driven learning by their employees. And of course, I mean, as a technologist, you always feel that you have the best solution. Yeah, so we are running into now all of those things, right? So I am that guy, right, who has that medicine for headache, telling all these corporate guys, look, you here's this wonderful medicine that I have. You may not realize you have a headache. You're soon going to have that headache because of that digital transformation. And the best way for you to deal with this upcoming headache is to use my solution. So there are a few enterprise customers which have thankfully actually bought that story. And hopefully we can use that story to convince others. Look, these guys are transforming. If you don't want to get left out, go for this solution. So don't underestimate the power of a technologist, right? Selling a solution that somebody doesn't need. Anyway, so we are now going around sharing this, and so some of the things that we have built using, again, some really unique research has been on video search, curation, and indexing. So now we have actually a different interface, which I didn't have the chance to update my slides, we've now come up with a new interface where you start with a search button, just like Google would give you a search on practically anything from the web. We would give you a search button for the world of videos. And right now it would work with a set of YouTube videos that you can enter a search term and come up with search results. You may wonder, so YouTube already gives me that search. What are you doing differently? What we are doing differently is we are doing these things like automatically creating something called a phrase cloud. So you would have seen these things of text documents. We are the first to do it for videos, that we will identify. So we will do speech recognition over the video, words that are being spoken, words that are appearing in the slides, and then we do natural language processing to identify which words are really important, and we identify those in a tag cloud. The other thing that we do is we also automatically identify identify different phases, distinct phases in the videos which are covering different concepts, and try to automatically identify the topics that are being covered in the video. So the basic thing is we are the first to really be, in some sense, almost converting these videos into textbooks. We are viewing videos as the next generation of textbooks, and we are saying, just like textbooks give you a table of content, they give you a glossary, we'll give you that. But unlike a paper-based textbook, we are giving you this in a hyperlink manner, so that when you now click on this, you say, okay, here are the topics which are being covered in this 1 hour plus video. If I click here, it directly takes me to where that topic is being covered. And likewise, if it is, you click on any of these words, it shows you all the places in the video where that term appears. So you can directly click there and go to that part. So now if you are an instructor, you can select the parts of the video that you want to use for your courses. If you are a learner, you can still do your own searches and you can identify clips, taking your own notes. And okay, you can choose to share your notes with your colleagues. So if you are an enterprise organization, this is a way that employees can also do their own self-learning and now start sharing their knowledge with each other. So and then we are supporting, again, building of a community across these enterprises, again, different areas within an enterprise, or likewise in academic groups. There can be communities of different institutes which are now sharing material with each other, helping each other out, and looking at, again, developing various kinds of analytics to, so we are working on a number of gamification kind of techniques which we are adding to the platform to make it more engaging for the learner. And we also believe in personalization, that each learner is different, so one size would not fit all. So we are trying to do a fair, again, amount of analysis of this whole learning experience for the learner and the material to try and personalize and come up with personalized recommendations for the learner along the different steps. Again, I think it's a long journey. It will take us a long time. So the question in our mind is, will we survive long enough for that time, right? That time that I feel, yes, we have a really, really good product. Do we have something which is kind of good enough, right, to sell right now? We believe we do. So, but again, time will tell. So this is my last slide. Again, my unsolicited advice to those of you who might be considering doing a startup, that if you are a reasonable person, do a regular job, don't do a startup. Because, I mean, startup is, I think, again, almost like a hopeless. I mean, it's like a very, very hard thing to do. And on the other hand, if you really want to change the world, but in ways that your organization is unlikely to support, then, I mean, there's no other way but to do that startup, right? And there have been all kinds of quotes, right, about people who are reasonable and unreasonable. So, and there's been that statement originally, I guess one of the original authors of that quote was George Bernard Shaw, that a reasonable man adjusts to the world, but an unreasonable man expects the rest of the world to adjust to himself. So it takes an unreasonable man to try and change the world. So you've got to be unreasonable to begin with if you really want to try and change the world, and only then should you really be thinking about all of this pain and so on, because all of these stories that we hear, right, of people who became billionaires and so on, we don't see all of the sweat and blood and all of that goes behind those few who become successful. So I think you've got to enjoy, in some sense, draw some satisfaction out of that journey, regardless of whether you ultimately succeed or not, right? Only then I feel you should be really undertaking this journey. But if you are such a person, I think there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur than today. With the kind of, I think, access we have to computational technologies, that nothing is impossible today with the kind of computational power that is becoming very easily available. So it's a much more level playing field, and with the kind of ecosystem that's been now building up, there's never been a better time than today to be an entrepreneur. So thank you.